Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of 4Fusion Friday. That's right. It's the first Friday of the month here in August. What is today's date? The 4th, right? Is today the 4th?
Today is the 4th. Yeah.
It's the 4th. That's right. Thanks for tuning in. We normally have 4 of us here today, but our special guest could not make it, and we wanted to keep the integrity of when we air these episodes being the first Friday, so we didn't want to put it off. So the original trio is back here once again. And as always, Eric Porter, George Lamie. Welcome, gentlemen.
What's up, boys?
How's it going?
Doing good. Doing good. As always, George has set up another fun program for us. So before we get into the 4 square picks for today, George has got some new releases to talk about. Don't you, George? I'll turn it over to you.
All right. The obvious, the biggie, Aurora Clara, Dreams. This is the 3rd album from these guys. The last one was a top 4 of the year for all 3 of us. I don't think this one will make it. It's a good record, but it is like a half step off. It's a little less direct, maybe a little more sparse, more acoustic. There's the only music, there's a new drummer on board. He doesn't command my attention, but it's really not that. It's more just it's just got a little less zip to it. It's still good, and I don't think people are going to be like throwing it out the window, but there's a difference. They even mentioned it in their press material. They got a blurb from Bill Monkowski on their website, and it references the fact that they're kind of took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit, but they're going to go back to the next one. This one's like 12 minutes shorter than the first 2 also. So maybe it's just kind of like get something out and work on the next one.
Quickly done. Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, there's definitely good moments on here. Just a couple songs where you may lose focus a little bit. Also have Matteo Mancuso, The Journey. Gentlemen have it. I don't have a physical yet. Second release in just a few months span after the earlier in the year Drift Lab album. I slightly prefer that one. This is more trio formats. I miss the keyboards. This one also too has got a little more of a Guitar Hero focus on a lot of it. It's not as much of a band thing and more guitar focused. It's still good though. I like it. I've been listening to the files, and obviously, if everybody saw Pete's review, he digs it. I assume you're on board, Eric.
Yeah, I'm liking it. I haven't because I've been doing my homework. I have only gotten a couple lessons in, but I like the fact that you're getting him. It's his writing too.
Yeah.
I don't think he wrote anything for the Drift Lab, if I'm not mistaken. Or not a huge player in terms
of credits for that.
So I like that it's him and it is his father. Somebody it's another Mancuso in there that I think is credited on 2 tracks. So I wasn't sure.
I think it's his father.
Is it his father? Okay.
Yeah, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. It's definitely a relative though, yeah.
But I like that it's him. We're getting to hear what's up here, so definitely a few more spins, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'll get a review out on the site shortly. So, but
I haven't heard the Drift Lab, but in fact, I think I like this even more as time has gone on since I did the review. It's really good. But yeah, you're right, George. It's more like a solo album from a Guitar Hero. That's really what.
Nothing wrong with that, but
yeah.
Another one is Golden Mean. Oumuamua. It's the first full-length release from this UK outfit after they had an EP a few years ago. It's a standard configuration quartet, guitar, bass, drums, keys. It's not a long record. It's only a half an hour, kind of like an old school length. I'm liking this one. It's I'm not sure quite how to describe it. They kind of have their own little sound. This is digital or vinyl only. Check their Bandcamp if you want to check it out. Golden Mean. And the last one is Marriage Material, Enchantment Under the Sea. This is their second release. Their debut was top 5 for me in 2021. German band, a quartet with a mallet player instead of a keyboard player. This is different from the debut in a couple of ways. It's 8 songs and a half hour shorter. It's 42 minutes versus 72 minutes, and the 18 songs. This is 10 songs versus 18 songs. Musically, it's a little less punchy, I would say. But I'm still enjoying it. Working off files right now, but I'm definitely going to buy this because I really like I'm like Eric, I like the mallets player idea, and Felix Lerman used to be in Flower Kings. He's one of my favorite drummers, and when he does the fusion stuff, he kind of evokes chambers, so I'm always in for that. So Marriage Material, Enchantment Under the Sea.
Cool.
But
and as always, we'll put these down in the comments below for you guys to check out.
Yeah. So the square this month is Pete's idea. He's a big aficionado of the live albums, so we decided to do a series of live album squares here and there. This one, I will say the makeup of it is got some interesting features. You got a 70s, 80s, 90s, and 21st century album. You have generally 2 blow-in albums and 2 compositional albums. And you have the very rare case where 3 out of the 4 are largely or entirely new songs at the time of release.
Oh.
And also you have 3 singles and 1 double. So going alphabetically here, you have Fleck and the Flecktones, Live Art, 1996. Frank Gambale Live, 1989. Mahavishnu Orchestra, Between Nothingness and Eternity, 1972. And Snarky Puppy, We Like It Here, 2014. So let's shake it up. Let's go to the live album master. Start it off with Pete. What is your number 4?
All right, so I'm very familiar with 3 of the 4 of these. That usually gives you a clue as to what my number 4 might be, and it is in this instance as well. Bela, Fleck and the Flecktones. Pretty cool album though. I've never really listened to this band all that much. I've heard, I don't think I own anything by them, but I have heard a few albums here and there. This one was recorded at various concerts over a course of like a 4-year period with lots of guest musicians. I think 92 to 96, right, George? Something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of world fusion-y, right? Kind of folky.
Mm-hmm.
Good way to describe the music. The banjo playing from Bela is really nice. On a lot of these tracks, it's very guitar sounding. Other times it definitely does sound like a banjo. He rips it up on like New South Africa. I really like Locks of Dread, which gets some great Victor Wooten bass playing. I mean, he's, for me, the reason I listen to these guys is Victor Wooten. I mean, he's just absolutely amazing. And a couple of tracks on this album have kind of like this weird, like bluegrassy dregs kind of feel to it in spots. Bigfoot's really folky, but like quite complex. I love the violin that you hear on some of the songs on this album. Flying Saucer Dudes, another burner, great Wooten bass playing on that. I think that him and Bela make a great team on Vix 9, which is just a terrific song. I like Sinister Minister. The pop and bass on there is just amazing. I think overall there's a lot of material on here. This is a double album and tons of songs, a lot of different players. I think there's some really good stuff on here. For me, it's a little too folky in spots for my taste, but I respect the hell out of the musicianship throughout the whole thing. So, and again, I don't really have any history with this other than getting this assignment to do it for this episode, but I did like it. I didn't love it, but I love the playing on it. It's just a lot of the styles on a lot of the songs aren't really in my wheelhouse, but it's my number 4, but it's a good album. Definitely a good album.
I forgot one other thing is 3 of these albums, 3 of them, not the Gambale, but the other 3 are top 20 all-time fusion albums on Rachel Music real close together, actually. That's another reason why these got picked.
Wow, very cool.
What's your number 4, Eric?
Just to show I have no bias, I'm also going with Bela Fleck. Saw them live a couple of years ago, and Pete, you took the words out of my mouth. Honestly, not that familiar with their stuff. Actually don't. I think I bought, off the top of my head, I didn't even know what I bought. It when I went and saw them, I picked something up. And I kind of agree with you. The folky, the musicianship is off the charts, without saying. And it's funny because my wife, I was playing this, and she's like, "Oh, that kind of sounds like Irish music," and I forget what song we were talking about, but it does. It's got a very folky flavor, but compositionally, these guys are fantastic, and I'm sure, George, that's what you were referencing with 2 of them are highly composed. This is definitely, I mean, these guys are on, and I had Flying Saucer Dudes, Stomping Grounds was another one that I really enjoyed listening to. But Pete, I think you said everything that kind of I was thinking of saying for this. Was I'm not that familiar with their studio stuff. When they did come, I'm like, based on reputation alone, I'm like, I got to go check them out. And they were fantastic live. And Bela Fleck actually just played up here, kind of a surprise appearance. He played with Dave Matthews when Dave Matthews was at Saratoga Performing Arts Center for the weekend. He came out and played a bunch of tunes with, I forget which night, but Dave Matthews, I think they have some connection. I think they've done that before. So there's nothing bad I can say about this. I think, like Pete said, it just might not be my taste, which is why it's at 4, but absolutely stellar musicianship, well composed, great playing, but probably just not my thing, and that's why it's at number 4.
Neither of you referenced it, so is it safe to assume that in a lot of ways for you, Fleck covers the missing guitar? Not entirely, of course, you'd prefer guitar, but does he kind of cover the space for you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
There was definitely nothing there that was a turnoff to me. And even when the band, like Pete said, there are times where it's like, okay, it's, the banjo may be more prominent, and then there's other times where, you might think, okay, there's a guitar there. Didn't bother me in the least. It's great to listen to from that standpoint. You're like, just high quality musicianship, great composing, just probably not my thing, I guess.
And I think even on the tracks where he's not standing out that much, kind of like Weather Report, you have such an incredible bass player that, that is just mesmerizing to hear what Wooten is doing. So kind of like, Pastorius and all those other dudes in Weather Report, even though there's no guitar, the bass is so busy. You're listening to that and you're like, kind of fills that gap a little bit. So yeah, no, I didn't really miss any actual guitar on this at all.
Cool. Number 4 is Frank Gambale Live. His 3rd album, which I would say the first 2 are kind of 50-50 albums for me. There's was in the mid 80s, the height of smoothie jazz days, and there's some of that on those first 2 albums, especially production wise. They're pretty plastic, but there was good songs on them, and he managed to cull most of the good stuff. He did a good track list here. This is a major blow-in record. If you're not familiar with Gambale, or you just want to hear Gambale at his physical peak, I mean, you couldn't go wrong with this. I mean, he's murdering it. And Steve Tabaglione, he plays sax in Iwi. He was in Caldera. He also is just blazing on this album. Keikagi also, but that's one of my problems. His piano patch on this is pretty crappy. It doesn't sell me at all that it's not a very good piano tone. But then again, you got a song like Spending Sunday with You, whatever patch he's got on that's great. I mean, it makes him sound just incredible. So he's a great player. Yeah, it's a good album. I don't have many complaints with it. Obviously, you got 6 songs and it's an hour long. So you get the idea. You're getting a lot of playing here. No complaints, but in this group, something's got to be 4. So I'll go with Gambale. Pete?
All right. So my top three are tough because I like all of these pretty well. So again, we're going down to history, right? So number three for me is going to be Snarky Puppy. This is a band I've only gotten into over the last like 3 years or so. So this was the first thing I ever bought from them, and I like this quite a bit. Really classy, kind of big band, modern jazz fusion, jazz rock, whatever you want to call it. Some really good performances on here. Yeah, you got multiple guitar players and horns, and just really good. I love the soaring trumpet and tasty guitars on Shofukan, or however the hell you say that. What About Me, really nicely composed. These songs are really composed very, very nicely, and it's all treated like in big band formation, which it makes this very different from everything else we've been hearing here. Great drumming on the whole thing. A lot of guitar solos. Sleeper is really funky. I like that quite a bit, as is Jambone. And, the drums and percussion on Jambone is just off the charts. Tio Macaco, great kind of Latin jazz thing. And I really like the awesome 11-minute Lingus to finish it all off. I think it's a really good album. I think we're kind of splitting hairs a little bit on these for me anyway, but it's just, to me, this is great big band modern fusion, and I would urge anybody to check this out. Really classy stuff too. Really, really good. And there's not a lot of bands doing this sort of thing today, so I always like to give them lots of credit. So that's my number three.
I don't think you need me tonight. That's my number three, is Snarky Puppy. This is actually funny enough. I got Apple Music and I ended up buying this, and I can't get used to the whole digital thing. I still need the hard copy, but that's one of the first digital ones I bought. Just saw them end of June at the Jazz Festival at Saratoga Performing Arts Center. Fantastic. Great live. And Pete, you hit on big ones. What About Me? Just absolutely killer. I love the horns, and I think I've talked about it on the show previously. I don't know that I ever listen to stuff that much that the horns really got to me, but a lot of the stuff that either George has been sending me or that I've been getting, I really dig the horns. And these guys use, like you said, there's a lot of guitar solos. The drums are off the charts on this stuff. And then you get to keep, everyone kind of gets their chance, but this is another one, George, I think you're referencing. Very highly composed. I think sometimes with them, I wish they'd rip a little more. But again, that's personal. If you like this kind of stuff, you mentioned Jambone, Pete. I think the guitar and the horns of that are fantastic too. And the closer Lingus, that's one I think it almost kind of take off, and it really goes. And this rhythm section cooks, and I can't remember names. Is it the bass player that's kind of the leader of these guys?
Michael League, yeah.
And does he do most of the writing?
Yeah.
Okay. But it was my first chance to see them live. What I liked about this is, if you go out on YouTube, there's kind of like in the studio and the audience is there. I almost prefer watching that to listening to it. Like, I'll throw it on YouTube and there's a bunch of those clips from that.
Fun watch, right? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. They kind of have an audience around them, but the way the band's almost like they're kind of looking at each other, the way they're set up. Go check those videos out, because I think that really will give you the flavor of this band, and they're terrific. Like I said, you get something like that opener, What About Me, and it just smokes. And I know that contrast is good. You got to have the push and the pull. So they do have some softer stuff in there, and they kind of get funky. So they give you a little bit of everything. I just like to hear them selfishly. I'd like to hear them soloing a little more, but that's not a knock in the least.
Yeah,
but that's
very ensemble type stuff. Yeah.
If you buy the physical, there's a DVD of the whole album.
Of course there is. So I'm sure I'll be buying that this week.
Yeah, I would recommend getting this, Eric. It's quite good.
My number three is Mahavishnu. Maybe I'm getting old and soft, but listening to these albums for this, I found the blowing albums to be less to my liking than they used to be. I still like them, but I found myself kind of losing focus sometimes. Like, okay, I get it. Just grinding my face for 5 minutes at a time. I don't like it as much as I used to. It's still good, This at the time was all original material. They couldn't get it together to do it in the studio. Management sent them out to Central Park, record it live. They're great readings, of course. The production used to be known as a kind of not that great production in the vinyl era, but they've cleaned it up for the CD release. It sounds great. Got no complaints with it, but honestly, when I listen to this material, I probably listen to Lost Trident sessions more than I listen to the live album, especially before I got the second disc. They put out a second disc and a box set, and until that came along, I was definitely listening to Lost Trident sessions more. But the second disc did bring me into listening to this more at the time. But yeah, I probably have maybe the most history with this, but I just found myself losing focus a little bit on this time, so I put it at 3. Pete? Frankie boy.
I remember buying this on cassette when it first came out, because this was what, 89, and I hadn't really moved over to CDs till 90. Or maybe I just started buying CDs, but I saw this somewhere and I bought it. And I just started getting to the Electric Band a couple of years before. And I actually had his first 2 solo albums, and I agree with you, George. They're okay. There's some good material on there, but they're kind of soft and not produced all that well. And then I got this, and I remember reading there was like a warning sticker on it. It said dangerous playing or something on the cassette. I don't remember exactly what it said, or play this loud or some shit like that. And I was like, oh, all right, cool. And there's just this blazing playing on this. So good. I mean, everybody who plays on this is amazing. Kiyakagi, Steve Tavaglione, Koshiznik, Heredia. I mean, the whole band is just blowing like crazy. And this is like the height of Gambale's like sweep picking technique thing, right? I mean, I remember like after I got this, I went out and bought one of his DVD or VHS tapes of him doing the sweep picking thing. And I remember spending whatever I spent on it, and then watching it and sitting there in front of the TV with my guitar. And I'm like, I am never going to be able to play this. And I never played that damn videotape again, because I'm like, what is the point here, right? It's just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, Credit Reference Blues just absolutely smokes. I mean, Frank's solos are just mercurial on here, as is the rest of the band. Fee Fi Fo Funk is burns. I mean, he's just like sweeping up a storm. And it's like, at the time, that was like so groundbreaking what he was doing. Spending Sunday with You, great acoustic tones on that. A Touch of Brazil everybody's blowing on that one. Spike's song is so memorable. I always love the melody of that song. And The Natives Are Restless is just great funky fusion. Basically, and you said it perfectly, George, this is basically a best of his early solo albums live and cranked up a few million notches. And I love it. I think it's great. So that's my number 2.
George, you might as well go. That's my number 2. And I don't own this, so I'm a little embarrassed that I don't have this. I saw Frank a few years ago at a small club in Schenectady, the Van Dyke. And I bought a couple things that he had on his table, and it was this collection of live stuff. So I honestly don't have much of his. So this was a first time listen for me. And after hearing Credit Reference Blues, I don't even know that I had to listen to the rest. I was like, good Lord. And the thing I like about this is the keyboard player, he's given him as much time to solo as Frank, as much as I prefer hearing Frank. And I think, like you said, George, it's that digital keyboard sound that, so you get that 80s stuff, and there's the patches. But I did want to ask you, because some of the synthy tones, I think it listed an electronic wind instrument. So there is sax on a few, but then there's that more of synthy horn sound that
Tavaglione. I mean, that was popular around that time. It almost I'm trying to remember what it looked like. It's just like this kind of stick thing. And,
okay.
It's weird looking. I know a bunch of, like, Brecker was playing them for a while, and a bunch of other dudes.
Yeah, it doesn't cut it. I mean, but that's probably the only thing, is that, and again, we're talking 80s, so those kind of tones were used, like you said, Pete. And you mentioned Spike's song, because that one kind of starts a little slow, but Frank's playing is gorgeous in that. I mean, he's just
It's a great
be-
melody, right? Yeah,
yeah,
it really is.
absolutely beautiful. And I think, like you said, Spending Sunday just has more of that acoustic feel, but it gets ripping as that one goes. And The Natives Are Restless is just, let's kill it, let's close it and kill it. So if you love his guitar playing, you know the catalog better than I do, both of you, but I can't imagine there's much out there that allows you to listen to him going balls out like this record. I mean, he's just great on this. So this is another one I have to seek out.
That's kind of like what it looks like. It's just like this kind of like
Oh, okay.
wand type thing. It's almost like an electronic flute or something like that, or
Okay.
something. I don't know, or it's kind of like a mix of like a flute and a sax, but it's like electronic. I don't know. It's weird. I always thought it was.
And it's got like patches like a keyboard.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And number 2 is the Flecktones. After the doldrums of 80s fusion, the early 90s stuff, the comeback bands of fusion was like Tribal Tech, for me, Uzeb, Resonance Vox, and the Flecktones were a big band in that. A bass player friend of mine showed me Sinister Minister, and we just couldn't believe it, that we never heard slapping like that. It was just utterly ridiculous. So I started listening to this band, and it's difficult to get your head around the way they sounded. Just with the weird instrumentation, Howard Levy playing harmonica and piano finally made me at least somewhat appreciate harmonica. And the drummer plays a drum machine built like a guitar, shaped like a guitar. That, I think, is still a drawback for them. The drum sounds are, even though we're at 2023 now, it really doesn't sound any better. So you never lose the fact that it's a programmed drum set for me, but I find it doesn't bother me as much on the songs that are really good. This is 12 new 12 new songs and 8 old songs on this. So they do a pretty good selection of the old songs, some of the really, really good ones like UFO Tofu and Blue Bob and Sinister Minister. And then of the new stuff is all really good. Stomping Grounds, like Eric said, that's a Victor Wooten tune. New South Africa, it's really good. Bigfoot, Locks of Dread. There's a few duff tracks on here. The Message is a really unfortunate song with the drummers rapping in it. That's got to go. And it does have a couple cool guests on it. Chick Corea's on one of the bluegrassy tunes. That's really good. I will say what really stands out is the production. This record sounds sumptuous.
That's not good. Yeah.
Maybe it's just I was gonna say I don't know how it translates online, but when you put it on the system, it just sounds amazing. It sounds like it's got a mixture of that big stadium ambiance, but like a really good board recording. It's quite exceptional production, and like Pete said, this is like a history album based on where I was at and what I was doing at the time. I probably have it rated higher than it should be. So that's my number 2. Ones?
Well, no surprise. Between Nothingness and Eternity. I remember the first time I ever heard this album. I had already had the first 2 records. Here's Chris Siebold trying to come in now at the end of the episode. What do you think? Should we let him on, or
I don't know. I guess.
all right?
Yeah,
Let me. Why don't we'll get through our picks, and then we'll let him in, and he can tell us real quick or he can comment on the George's pick, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
he can give us his picks too.
Yeah, true. The first time I ever heard this, I had already heard the first 2, and I love those. And then this to me was just like, first of all, I was blown away that like, oh, a live album with like all new tunes. Like, what's that all about? It wasn't until years later that I heard the whole story about how, you know, the Lost Trident sessions, and this is the album that was supposed to be released at the time, but they already broke up and whatever. And then when George and I first got to know each other, he went and sent me the recordings for because I was like, well, this is like a 40-minute live album. What's going on? It's got 3 tracks and that's it. Where's the rest of it? Well, the rest of it's right here. And this was included in the box set, which is really cool. And there they have these other songs from the first 2 albums and whatnot. So it's like a full show. But yeah, I mean, there's some savage stuff on here. I get George's opinion about, you know, the constant soloing and blowing. I get it. But the intensity of this stuff just gets me. I mean, McLaughlin and Cobham especially are just off the chain here. I mean, Trilogy is terrific. I love the rapid fire, like, guitar torrents from McLaughlin. Then you got the nimble piano lines from Hammer and the soaring violin, and just it gets heavy, it gets funky. It's just amazing stuff. Sister Andrea is just a funky groove monster. McLaughlin's solo on that is amazing. You know, Dream is 21 minutes and change, and again, Cobham is just tearing it up, and then McLaughlin comes and they all get their moment to shine. You got a great synth solo from Hammer and more violin, and just, you know, this isn't jazz, people. I don't know what the hell this is, but this is just like wild stuff. And like I said, it's a shame back in the day they only released this as like a single album, but I get it. I get they were going, you know, they wanted to kind of promote the new songs, I guess. But I think this would have been a great double album at the time. But yeah, this is my number one. Without question, number one.
I mean, Fusion double live albums, even now, but especially then, they really don't exist. I mean,
no, I know. Yeah, would have been good though.
Yep, same for me. And I think with Mahavishnu, obviously, and I get what George is saying as well. And Pete, you reiterated that, but I think for me, guitar and violin, always in my heart. I just love that combination. And, you know, Pete, you said something about, I don't know what this is, because there's nobody who has this kind of raw power pretty much across the board, whether it's jazz or, I mean, these guys just, the intensity that they play with is, and the studio albums convey that too.
Yeah.
And as much as I enjoy listening to this because it's live, the studio albums, it's not like it's pulled back and here's the live stuff to give you a little extra. They always came out with that. At least, you know, the classic lineup always came out like that. And for me, I think when I put that on and I just sit back and listen to it, I'm like, I can't imagine anyone who likes heavy rock, whatever you want to jazz. They've got the chops of jazz musicians, obviously, but they're just balls out. And even Dreams, which maybe gets a little noodly, I don't know. I just love it. I love this stuff. And every time I listen to it, I think I just sit there and I just imagine seeing these guys, seeing this group of musicians together, how good they are, how powerful they are. And when that comes across on record, I can't imagine what it would have been like to see these guys live. I just can't.
Yeah, sometimes I listen to this album and I just picture myself in New York City in Central Park watching them play this show on stage, and I'm like, oh, that must have been amazing.
Absolutely
amazing, you know.
Powerful is the best word. I mean, it's an assault. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're in the mood for that or you're a fan of that, you got to have it.
Yes.
I mean, the flip side, my number one is Snarky Puppy. I had some of their albums before this, good, you know, and I did feel like they were building to something. And when they started, the 2 albums before this, they started doing this thing, recording all new stuff live in a makeshift studio and doing video for it too. But when this hit, it just took it to another level that frankly their path has been like a mountain. They got up to here and it's been slowly down a little bit. But yeah, all 8 songs, really good stuff. I agree with you guys though. When they actually do cut loose, those are some of the more memorable moments, like the drum solo and What About Me, the keyboard solo in Lingus, obviously that It's been done by every reaction channel on YouTube. Everybody's just studied Corey Henry's keyboard solo.
And what's the mouth thing?
The
keyboard player. It's like your talk box for a keyboard player, I guess, right? But
Yeah,
it has that cool vibe to it too. I like that.
Yeah. Really cool stuff. I like every song a lot. Jambone and Tio Macaco are two of my favorites, but really the whole damn thing. I mean, and I get as much out of the DVD as I do listen to the album. I played that DVD I don't know how many times, but for me, I guess Pete was not probably surprised because we did a live album show on Prog Seat, and this was my #1 live album. So nothing's
That's
changed.
your top for them, George? Anything they've released, this is your favorite?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one after it, I think, is almost as good, but it's a different experience because it's with an orchestra.
Okay.
But they didn't do their hits package with an orchestra. They wrote all new material for the orchestra. So it's a kind of a different animal. But yeah, really good. So George's pick, band called Wins, or is it WINS? I don't know.
Considering there's periods after it all, I think it's WINS. Yeah.
It is their names. It's the last names: Wada, Ishiguro, Nagai, Tsukunuma. Akira Wada is guitar player for Prism and Exhibition. Kozo Sugunuma would be the drummer for Fragile the year after this. And Toshimi Nagai has played on so many Japanese fusion albums, it's not even funny. Ishiguro I'm not as familiar with. They did this, and then they did another live album with almost all the same songs in 2008, and that's all they ever did. It's one of the weirder careers ever, I guess. I guess they're all busy with other bands, so I guess they fit it in where they fit it in. For me, it's kind of in the middle of what we're talking about. There's blowing and there's composition, a little bit of both. But what do you guys think? Start with Pete.
Like I had never heard this before. George sent it to me, and I was like, "Holy crap!" I mean, there's nothing like getting off to the races like they do on Dance of the Harlequin right off the bat. I mean, that opening blast to that song is just like, I remember the first time I put it on, I was like, what was that just happened there? I mean, high energy stuff right off the bat, incredible soloing, but really tight ensemble playing. And I think that's, and you said it before, that's the key throughout this whole album. There's plenty of blowing and soloing and just like jaw dropping stuff going on here, but there's really tight compositions as well. Everything kind of fits together really, really good. Moonstruck totally grooves. Winds is a really interesting song because it kind of starts off like almost sounds like a Pat Metheny group tune. And then all of a sudden the guitar blazes in and it gets a little heavier and like, holy cow, how do we go from that point A to point D like that? I mean, the transition was just really good. Melodic Earth Dance. Love the bass and drums on Delusion area is another good one. Join 12. Total bass showcase. Holy cow, what is this guy doing? Awesome stuff. Siren's Voice. It's kind of spacey. It really, really melodic. There's some nice melodic stuff on here. And Spiritual Echoes, another blazer. And yeah, but still really melodic. And I think it's a killer album. Great playing. I've listened to this probably more than I've listened to any of this other stuff over the last couple of weeks. And this is really, really good. Again, not surprising because George always unearths these great Japanese fusion records, and this is one of them.
It's hard to come up with a live album that I didn't think you guys had heard of, because if you're to the point where you can have a live album, you've got some renown, right? But I thought, oh yeah, what about this one? What did you think, Eric?
I loved it. You know, The Way to My Heart is with Through the Guitar. This guy's amazing. And the story behind this, I think, George, when we were talking, and I feel terrible. I had been conversing with somebody on progressive years ago. And this guy sent me a whole bunch of fusion stuff because I'm getting into it. And George said, "Do you have Winds?" And I'm going through that pile and I'm like, "Yeah, I've got it." And then I'm like, "Is this your writing?" He's like, "No." So I go, "I guess it wasn't you that I was talking to." But the guitar playing, and what's funny is, and I think you guys will agree, as I'm listening to this, I'm going, bass player's almost stealing the show here. He's phenomenal.
Yeah, he's really good.
Like, I think Siren's Voice, you get that, he's kind of got that bass solo in the beginning of it. gorgeous keys, the guitar, but I think, like you said, George, probably with this, and Pete, you said it too, you get the really in your face, ballsy stuff, but they have dynamics and there's that back and forth and things pull back a little bit. I think, like you were saying, Moonstruck has kind of that more groove feel to it. And Winds is another one, very mellow, little bass thing going on, and then the guitar starts blowing, and I'm in love. I mean, I love this. And George, would you say Prism, and who's the other band that he played with?
Exhibition. Did you
Okay.
notice, Pete, that that's the same guitar player?
No, like because they're really good too. Holy cow!
Yeah.
I know I have a Prism. I don't know that other band, so that's something I want to check out as well.
Exhibition's really good.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, if you saw the songwriting credits, the guitar player doesn't write anything. Maybe because he was running Prism at the same time as this band, so he didn't want to use his songs. But he writes nothing. The drummer wrote Winds, and then he took it to Fragile and Fragile redid it. But the rest is split with the keyboardist and bass player.
Yeah.
But yeah, good writing. Just it's intense. It's got nice parts. Just an overall really good album. I've always liked it. Never thought I'd get a hard copy, but I stalked it on Amazon for years, and it popped one day. Just under. Anytime a Jap CD comes on and the first number is a 1, grab it, because it's never that way, you know. It's always $30 or whatever. But yeah, so I grabbed it. It's a really good record.
Yeah.
Wish they had done more. Wada passed a couple of years ago, so that's not going to happen. And Suganuma also died.
Oh yeah. Good
What are you
stuff.
going to do?
Good stuff. Yeah, Mr. Seabold dropped off again, so I don't know.
We'll catch up with him later.
Yeah, we'll get him on another one. That's all.
And I think we also wanted to mention that we had a little conversation today, so I'm sure fans of this show will be excited to know Mr. DiMeola is going back out on tour this fall.
Yep.
So far it looks like East Coast dates, but I'm assuming it'll be a full-blown run at some point.
Not just going out, but doing the electric stuff.
Yes, doing the electric
All
stuff.
electric stuff, yeah. Yeah, he can't seem to get away from that. I know he's always wanted to, but that's what draws. I mean, the last tour I saw him on was a full electric tour, and he was packing them in everywhere. So, and that was supposed to be the last one. Nope.
That one like 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, it was 2017 or 18, I think, right? Was that tour?
Like that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him since I saw him at the Return to Forever first one, 2008. It's the last time I saw him.
Yeah, he's great live. Great guitar player. So, yeah, they just announced all the dates for those watching, so you can go on to Al's website to see what they've announced so far anyway. So, cool. All right, George, you want to give any hints of what's coming up next month? Or?
Yeah, next month, speaking of wins, we are going regional. We are going, anybody that knows me is probably surprised at the restraint I've shown not to go straight to Japan, but we are going to Japan next month. And that I will say is going to be a very tough square for me, because I like all of that stuff. I'm going to make it tough on YouTube.
As always.
What we like.
It's never easy. It's never easy. And we should have a fourth member next month as well. So stay tuned for that. And for those of you who are watching, obviously you got some homework to do right now, because we got these fine live albums for you to listen to and go check out and let us know what you think. And once you do, put that down in the comments below. We'll also, like I said, we'll have George's new releases listed down there as well too, for you to investigate that. And stay tuned next month for another episode of 4Fusion Friday, first Friday of each month. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together.
All the damn time.
Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as it posts. And please do hit the like button before you leave. Also down below, we got the links to our Ko-Fi page for channel donations, as well as our merch page. So thanks again in advance for all your support there. But more importantly, go out and support these artists. Go listen to these fine albums. And we'll see you next month here on 4Fusion Friday. For George Lamie and Eric Porto, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good one, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.